What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Ango Show, hashtag TAS Live. It is March 29th, 2023. We're following up with a very, very big, great episode of AEW Dynamite. Honestly, really, really good. We're going to talk about it in today's video. It's WrestleMania week, baby, so you know what that means. We're talking about everything that's going down. There's some big news. There's some big things that are happening. So obviously this channel is the one that's going to keep you updated along the way. And it's going to be a great night. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let's take a look. Let's see who's here. We got Negla K. We got Cedric. We got Denisha. We got Todd Crow. Shout out to some of the VIP chilling out here. Denisha, let me make you a moderator. I got you. Let's perfect. You are now a moderator. Appreciate you. What's up, Albert? What's up, Fernando? What's up, Byron? Appreciate you guys stopping by. Phenomenal episode of Dynamite. Honestly, 3 weeks in a row. We saw Adam Cole return, but no, we didn't get Jay White. we didn't get Jay White tonight, which I think that pretty much confirms. I mean, we could all be wrong. We can all see what happens, but I think that pretty much solidifies that Jay White is going to WWE. Obviously, we don't know for a fact, but just based on the reports, based on what we're seeing, based on the things that are happening, it would only make sense at this point for him to join WWE. A lot of good things on the card tonight. I honestly can't find one thing wrong with tonight's episode. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. But I really can't find anything wrong with tonight's episode of Dynamite. The only thing I would really say is that they are continuing stories. You could just tell they're hyper-focused. And it's 3 weeks in a row where they've ended the show getting you excited about the next week. Now I want to see Jericho and Adam Cole, right? Like, that was a great way to set up the next feud. And some people might not like it, but at the end of the day, Adam Cole needs a big feud. He's back in the company. This is a great way to do so. And you know what? 3 weeks in a row, you can obviously clearly tell there is a huge difference in AEW right now. You can seriously tell a difference right now in the last 3 weeks of Dynamite. You can tell a clear difference between these 3 episodes versus anything they put out last year in 2022. They are hyper-focused. Every single match, every single segment, every single thing that happened on television tonight mattered. Everything had a story, not just a story. They had a good story. They're progressing every single week. There's continuity within these stories. And on top of that, it's the 3rd week in a row where they're leaving you with a cliffhanger to get excited for the next week. I know this is literally all I have been asking for. 2020, 2021. AEW used to do this type of thing, and they did it a couple times in 2022, but they really got off track. Now, this company is looking great. I'm super excited about it. I mean, this is just a really good episode, a very strong episode. This is the type of content that people wanted from AEW, and I say it all the time. Tony Khan doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. He just needs to drive the damn thing. Seriously, that's pretty much really what it comes down to. You don't got to reinvent the wheel. You just got to drive. And Tony Khan is doing some really, really good stuff. 3 weeks in a row, literally. Like, that's going to be a major trend. Look at that. The All-Atlantic Championship. It just means something. You know what I mean? The thing is, like, QTV and Hobbs, like, it means something. Ricky Starks and Juice Robinson. It means something. They didn't need to wrestle tonight to make a difference. They have attention put on them. It's just really good. Bryan Danielson, BCC, The Elite, Don Callis. Oh my goodness. Guys, I am not joking when I tell you how good this is. The reality is this. The reality is that AEW has been missing a major storyline. Give me 1 second. Albert, I'll read your super chat in just a second. The reality is that AEW has needed a major storyline in their company, and they haven't had one in a really long time. And we see how important the Bloodline storyline has been to WWE. AEW needed something like that. I said this on the 16th. AEW and what they're cooking up with the Elite and BCC and everybody could be one of the biggest storylines ever. I still stand firm by that belief. I mean, This is excellent storytelling. AEW is telling you the story as time goes on throughout the show. 3 weeks in a row, AEW has cliffhangers to keep you interested in the next week. I mean, for every single person that has ever been upset with me asking for storylines, I'm not asking Tony Khan to reinvent the wheel. We know TK can tell good stories because he's done it before. And if you can't tell there's a major difference between these shows, these last 3 episodes, and the episodes that they had last year, if you can't tell me there's a major difference between them, then clearly you and I are watching a different product, because look at AEW. In the last 3 weeks, it's been more compelling than anything they did last year. And I truly mean that. It's insane. Albert Ponce dropped a super chat for $5. OC is the AEW workhorse champ, and Hobbs looks like he might be in the same position soon, and I like it. Yes, bravo, Albert. That's 100% true. Orange Cassidy's killing it in that role. He's killing it in that role. He's doing a fantastic job in that role. And the best part about Orange Cassidy right now in this role is that I know it's not the TV championship, but the All Atlantic championship is constantly being defended, and he's constantly winning despite, heels using shitty tactics against him. I'm all for this. That's my point. My point is that I'm all for it. And I think we could be seeing the same thing with Hobbs, which is obviously very intriguing to me. That's very exciting to me. Those mid-card titles have kind of struggled a little bit on AEW television. I'm not going to lie. So this to me is one of those things where I truly am happy to see how it goes. But Orange Cassidy absolutely killing it right now. And Hobbs and QTV, it's a really good story. I don't want to say story because we don't really know what the story is, but it's a really good transition from Powerhouse Hobbs, who didn't really have a direction, and now he's doing the QTV thing, and I think there's some really cool stuff that's happening there. Thank you, Albert, for the $5 super chat. Appreciate you. We got another super chat from Mr. Corona. Mr. Corona says, maybe Jay White shows up after the Ricky and Juice match next week. I could be wrong, and Jay debuts at Mania or Raw after Mania. This is a really good point, too, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I just think the longer you prolong the Jay White thing, I think the worse it is for the company. But also at the same time, too, I mean, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens at WrestleMania. We'll see what happens. I think whatever happens with Jay White definitely happens within the next week or so. It could be this weekend. It could be next week. And that could be AEW or WWE. It could be either or. But I feel like Tony Khan I feel like if he's going to bring in Jay White, he is going to do what he typically does, and that's promote the living shit out of it. Watch this episode. I'm going to have a new signing. That's how I see it. But you never know with Tony Khan at this point. At this stage of the game, I think it's really hard to say what Tony Khan is going to do. But I will also say I still stand firm. I'd rather see Jay White in WWE. I know there's people whose feathers are a little ruffled right now on social media because I think Jay White would be better in WWE. I would like to see him in WWE more than AEW. But guess what? That's just my opinion, and y'all are going to have to live with it. Mr. Corona, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Albert, thank you for the super chat. What's going on, everybody? Let's take a look who's in the chat. Darren's coming through. Darren is one of the VIP members as well, so shout out to Darren for stopping by. Mike, Steve, Vegeta, thank you guys for stopping by as well. I mean, if you looked at Dynamite tonight, you can just tell there was a clear difference in the product. And we have some breaking news. Wow. AEW, some breaking news for those who may have missed it. So for those who may have missed it, when AEW Dynamite went off the air, Daniel Garcia challenged Hiroshi Tanahashi to a match at Supercard of Honor. Wow. This Supercard of Honor card is going to be incredibly stacked. Like, I think that's just clear as day. It's going to be a really, really good wrestling match. Tanahashi put out a photo and a tweet about AEW and ROH, but he never revealed what he was going to do. We know he's going to be working Impact Wrestling with NJPW and Impact Wrestling with Mike Bailey. I mean, sheesh. 2 very incredible matches to get excited for. 2 very good matches to get excited for. That's why I love WrestleMania week. I mean, I literally cannot stress the importance of how much I love WrestleMania week, and this is the reason why. You're going to have a lot of great things. You're going to have the stories in WWE. You're going to have the big-time matches in Impact and New Japan. You're going to have Ring of Honor have a little bit of both. And we know that ROH is going to have the new tag titles revealed. I mean, it's just going to be a massive, massive, massive week. It's so cool. Tanahashi versus Daniel Garcia. Unbelievable. Yeah, Tanahashi's working the Impact and New Japan show. So that's for sure happening. I mean, that excites me. That really does excite the living shit out of me. I'm not going to lie. Let's see. We're going to pull up some stuff. Actually, one thing I do want to mention about Tanahashi, too, is because you're going to have the people complain, oh, well, there's no storyline attached to it. Bro, it's Supercard of Honor. It's ROH. It's not that big of a deal, okay? If it was AEW, I understand, but it's ROH, okay? And Tony Khan's got to sell pay-per-views. He's only got like 12,000 subscribers for that thing. So, yeah. Oh my God. We got a lot of people showing love in the chat, so I appreciate that. Cedric Gilmer says in the chat, BCC versus the Elite, Blood and Guts, sign me up. Hey, May 10th, AEW Dynamite in Detroit. Let's do it. Blood and Guts. I'm all for it. I love everything that they're doing with the Don Callis, Hangman Page, the Elite, the BCC. Bryan Danielson swerved everybody. Bryan Danielson absolutely killing it. I mean, it's such a great thing to see Bryan going full heel. It's just a really... It's just such a good freaking story, bro. That's all they needed. Unbelievable. I'm putting out a tweet. I'm clipping my stuff. You know, that's what I do when I'm live. I clip my stuff and put them on Twitter. Guys, if you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe. Give me 1 second to put out this tweet. Trust me, we got a lot to talk about tonight. If you can't see the difference between the last 3 episodes of AEW Dynamite and anything they put out last year, I don't know what to tell you. This show has been incredible with fantastic endings. TAS live hashtag. Yeah, buddy. Let's tweet that out. We got to put out that clip because, you know, that's what we do out here. I love wrestling. Cedric says, Bryan works better as a heel. I even liked him better that way in WWE. Coincidentally enough, I was literally just talking to my cousin about this earlier today. I know some people didn't like when he was like the vegan champion or whatever, but I loved it. I love Bryan working as a heel. He's a really good in-ring worker, but I think people underestimate how good he actually is as a heel, as a bad guy. So me personally, I personally like to see him as a bad guy. But obviously BCC 4-on-4, right? You got a 4-on-4 matchup. I mean, I want to see how this gets better, and I want to see how much this improves, really. Like, not improves, but how it progresses. Because I think more than ever right now, BCC and the Elite is really good. Obviously, if CM Punk and FTR return to the company, that could be a really cool thing. You know, faction wars, bro. Like, it would only make sense. The guy who begs for factions in WWE would like to see faction wars in AEW. You know what I mean? How often? We were talking about it in the stream earlier. Maybe it was yesterday or today. I can't remember. But talking about the Judgment Day and the Hurt Business and the Bloodline and all of these different things, all of these different teams, all of these different factions. It's like, that's what I want to see, man. I want to see people go and fight each other and just wrestle and build stories. I don't really ask for much, dude. Really quick, I need you guys to do me a massive favor. I need you guys to hit that like button for me. Like, I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you drop kick it, super kick it. I don't care if you hit it with the Meltzer driver, the Ango splash. I don't care. But if you guys could do me a favor and just like this video, it's Ango Mania week. I would greatly appreciate it. The best way to support the channel, especially if you can't drop a super chat or a donation or a super duper chat or anything like that, a like is definitely appreciated. It helps the channel. And look, I'm gonna just be real with you guys. Like, this is a major week for me, so the more and more and more that my stuff gets shared, it's definitely appreciated. You guys, if you follow me on Twitter, that's probably why I clip so much, because I'm putting clips out there. I want people to be able to see what we talk about and see our community. You know, and obviously we want to grow. So I'm excited about it. I know a lot of people right now are in the chat talking about Jay White, and I think the Jay White WWE thing is just going to happen, personally. I do think so. If it doesn't, I'm not mad about it. I just think it makes more sense for him to be in WWE. If not, why not have him debut? Well, I want to say debut, but why not have him with Adam Cole? We just got a $5 super chat from Corey Moore, another VIP member of the channel, by the way. Shout out to Corey. He drops a $5 super chat and says, Ango, I think Tony should make ROH Supercard of Honor with an all-star wrestling cast going forward on WrestleMania weekend. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I agree. If I'm going to be completely honest, like, ROH Supercard of Honor is always going to be, how do I want to word this? Like, let me fix this, my bad. I think the thing with ROH Supercard of Honor is, at the end of the day, it's not an AEW product, but it is basically Tony Khan or AEW's presentation for WrestleMania weekend, right? So, obviously, Tanahashi and Daniel Garcia and Shibata is going to be wrestling Wheeler Yuta. You know, Corey, I think you make a great point about ROH Supercard of Honor. It should be like AEW and Tony Khan's, like, all-star weekend thing, you know? Like, every sport has all-star weekend. Let this be the all-star show. Who cares about the storylines? Who cares about any of that? Just put on some great matches, because ultimately what really, really matters is selling out during a very, very busy time of the year, which is obviously WrestleMania week. And then, of course, you got to keep in mind with Supercard of Honor, you have New Japan, you have AEW, you have ROH. You can have Impact guys if you want. You could do AAA. You can do things like that to spice it up. But it would be a big win for Tony Khan to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people in this situation would enjoy it for sure. I like the idea. I personally like the idea of using Supercard of Honor.
Me more.
Shout out to William for the subscription. As I was saying, I like the idea of ROH Supercard of Honor kind of being like the all-star show, right? And because AEW is not involved with WrestleMania weekend, this is Tony Khan's way of keeping AEW involved with WrestleMania weekend. Tanahashi and Daniel Garcia is going to be an absolute slapper, but then, you know, Shibata and Wheeler Yuta and Claudio and Kingston, and, you know, let this be an event. Don't really be too worried. Like, don't be so focused on the stories. You should be to a certain regard, but let this be your all-star show, you know, and make it clear it's your all-star show. Put up some dream matches and things like that, and, you know, tell some stories, have some big matches, make a big statement on this weekend, because there's a lot of wrestling, and Tony Khan won't have AEW during the weekend, but this is a way for him to do it, and I think it makes sense. Thank you, Corey, by the way, for the super chat. I appreciate you, bro. Thank you big time. Guys, if you want to drop a super chat just like Corey, Mr. Corona, and Albert Ponce, go ahead and do so. It guarantees that your questions and stuff will be read. We also have a big shout out for Cameron Johnson. Cameron Johnson is a level 1 member for 3 months. And he says, yo, WrestleMania 39 will be off the chain. Shout out to you for the milestone. I agree. I think WrestleMania 39 is going to be great. AEW tonight, by the way, AEW was in St. Louis tonight. So just kind of keep that in mind. The energy for this show without like when you look at how do I want to say this? I don't know how I want to say this. I think, yeah. So when you look at St. Louis, for example, it's not near WrestleMania weekend. It's not near Los Angeles. It's not near SoFi Stadium. Yet, tonight's episode of Dynamite almost felt like the same energy from a WrestleMania weekend show. Does that make sense? I'm trying to find the words to piece it together. That's the only thing I could really come up with. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's kind of how I see it. Again, shout out to Cameron for being a level 1 member for 3 months. Appreciate you. Mr. Corona says your idea of a massive pay-per-view with multiple promotions on it is literally All In. It is. The fact that All In isn't a regular thing is actually kind of mind-boggling to me, by the way. It is, in my opinion. I think it's a little bit mind-boggling. It would be nice to see something like that happen because at the end of the day, AEW clearly has the money to do things like that. But also, it's evident Tony Khan sells tickets to his shows regardless of how good or bad his booking is, right? He sells tickets. So, if Tony Khan is selling tickets to his shows and people are going to AEW shows, then we know that AEW will benefit from throwing a version of All In every year. So, I think it just benefits the wrestling industry as a whole for Tony Khan. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of... I'm sure there is a lot of logistics and stuff, but I'm not too... Yeah. Yeah. By the way, AEW All Access. So I have it on DVR right now because we're live, but for those who missed it, basically, it appears that they do mention All Out, Brawl Out, but they don't talk about it specifically. So, that's really interesting. I want to bring Albert Ponce in here. Albert, are you listening, buddy? I want to bring you in. We had a great conversation last night, so I feel like this would be really fun. Albert, where you at? Cameron says, just be honest, bro. From watching the highlights, AEW ticket sales are, I'm from the way that they are, I'm big on storytelling and the details do matter. They do matter. Storytelling does matter. But AEW has always been a really solid live event experience. So, for example, I went to Blood and Guts, and I hated the build for Blood and Guts, by the way, last year. And I said last year that the build sucked, but I knew, it's like what I said before, you know, every person that ever wants to twist somebody's words will try to do it regardless. But I'll never forget, I said, you can go to an AEW show. All my OG viewers know this. I said, you could go to an AEW show with a shitty-ass build, and you'll still enjoy yourself. Because they have exciting matches. It's a great atmosphere. It's exciting to watch. I stand by that. I really do stand by that. That is not the same for WWE. We saw when Vince McMahon was writing television for WWE consistently, shitty builds. You don't want to go watch a match that has 20 DQs, or you don't want to watch a show that has 20 DQs. So there was a lot of issues with the Vince McMahon style show versus Tony Khan. But if you look at AEW and their live experience, it's just a very, very good live experience, you know? We're going to go and bring in Albert. Let's get him in here. Albert.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. How's your night?
Good, man. Great, great episode of Dynamite, which was, something really good to see. So yeah, it's been good, man.
What'd you think overall of the show? Like, I mean, kind of a lot of the things I've been pointing out in recent weeks is, the continuity, and then of course um I've talked about continuity, and I've talked about cliffhangers, and I've talked about just like the overall consensus is that the show is being consistent. Do you agree with that?
Yes. And even more than that, and I put this in the chat earlier. So tonight we had 5 wrestlers that were on TV. They weren't live.
Mhm.
They were, in vignettes.
Yep.
Powerhouse Hobbs, Jade, Taya, Starks, Juice. They didn't have to be there live, but their stories continued from last week.
Yep.
And that's all you need. That's it. You have 3 hours, so you can't have everybody be live, but at least if you can use that time with the rest of the talent and do vignettes, do backstage segments, little things like that to continue and progress, that's great. And then on top of that, the actual show that we did have, it was a great episode. I think that, you know, with the Cole match, it was a little, it took him a little bit to kind of like, he messed up his move there the first time, but, he definitely looked good, and it's good to see him back. And I think that the way they ended with Jericho was great. Jericho and him didn't touch, they didn't bump. He just kind of looked back at him like, I got my eye on you.
Look at that camera shot. That's what it comes down to, is the camera shot at the end, the way that they ended it.
Yeah.
It was a very good camera shot.
Exactly. It was perfect. And I'll say this much, and this is going to probably get me, flack, but with the whole Jay White thing, of whether he's going to be in AEW or WWE, the greedy part of me wants him in AEW, but right now, honestly, the way that, storylines are going, I don't really think you need him. It's great to have him, but, there's, if you're going to put Jericho and Adam in a feud together, that's great, because, you bring in Jay White, if you put him with Adam Cole right off the bat, one's going to have to lose, and you don't want that. So, I think that what AEW is doing right now is great. And if Jay White goes to the WWE, we know he's going to do good there. So,
I feel like it's a win-win, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah. He can't lose either way, but yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, Orange Cassidy, the guy is competing on Dynamite, Rampage, defending. One thing I like, I mean, it sucks for Danhausen that he's injured, but without Danhausen there, you see, how OC has to come back, against, the outside interference, and it makes him more endearing, and you get that. And he's become a little bit more serious too, which I love. So, yeah, I mean, everything was great today.
It's just so refreshing, man. It's so refreshing to watch AEW and just feel like, I don't know, a lot of the major complaints have been answered. And I get it. Like, it could be a little premature to talk about this because it's only been 3 weeks in a row. But then you look at the card that's been announced for next week, and all of those matches have stories. It's like the Guns, for example. Like, we know what the match was built for next week. In the past, AEW would just ignore it with a vignette or a video package, but then this week, what happens is the Guns are backstage talking about a build to build for the FTR match next week, which has major implications. And it's like, see how I literally talk about, like, I'm not asking for anything other than just some, like, actual, like, I'm just asking for, like, some, like, actual continuity. That's it. I'm not asking for everything to be fucking perfect, but I'm asking for continuity.
Right. Agreed. Because even, like, if I had to pick like one segment that maybe could have been better for me, will still be the Outcast, only because I love how Ruby is the mouthpiece now.
Yeah.
Because Soraya was just with the constant, this is my house, we get it, but it just wasn't, it's not clicking for me with her.
I know some people don't like it. I know some people don't like it, and I don't mean to cut you off, Albert, but one thing I do want to bring to your attention, because I said the same thing to my cousin. He said the same exact thing. And he's like, it's just not clicking for me. And I said, I get that it's not clicking for you. I said, but when's the last time a major feud in the women's division has had so many people on TV at once? Sky Blue, Riho, Jamie Hayter, Willow, Ruby, Tony, you know, it's benefiting the company for getting people on TV when one of their big issues is TV time. The number one thing I complain about is having a big roster and then not having TV time to use them. I think they found a way with this storyline to get as many people on TV to maximize TV time, and it's a good start. It's not perfect, but it solves a problem that they've had for a long time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I said, with Ruby now being the mouthpiece, Saraya being more of just kind of like, I don't know, muscle, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way she was, picking Willow tonight, I'm fine with it, But yeah, this is the only thing, just because you do have Sky Blue, who's still green.
Yeah.
You have Willow, who's still learning. So, things won't always go smoothly. But yeah, I agree. 100% better that they're on TV. They're getting TV time, they're getting the reps in, they're getting practice in there. So yeah, 100% agree.
And that's the thing. You could tell, like, there's certain people. Actually, I was telling my cousin about this too. Let me read it for you exactly. He goes, he's like, bro, what do you think about Willow so far? Because he knows, like, I've been a really big fan of Willow, just wanting to see her, like, get a push. And I was like, honestly, bro, I still stand by what I've told you before. She's great. I think she should actually be the champ right now. It's not that Jamie Hayter's bad. I think she's actually been incredible. I just think in certain ways she kind of cooled off. Now, keep in mind, we're texting in real time, and then Jamie Hayter comes out for the save. I was like, listen to that reaction. People love Jamie Hayter. I think maybe eventually what you need to do is get Willow in the title picture. Whether it's with Jade or Jamie Hayter, I don't care. But it is very clear and evident that Willow is going to be a major star in this company as long as they continue to play their cards right. My cousin goes, yeah, I definitely agree. I wish they didn't put her on ROH. And I told him, I said, in the meantime, there would be nothing wrong with her winning the ROH championship belt and then going on to AEW TV with the ROH title. Don't forget, Impact Wrestling used to do Option C with X Division. I'm not saying Tony Khan can't do this, because I think he could, but it wouldn't be a bad idea for somebody to win an ROH championship belt, and then whenever they're done with it, they can cash it in for a championship belt on AEW. So, like, to elaborate on that, for example, you could always have Willow win the women's championship in ROH, because right now, obviously, Jamie Hayter, Jade, they got their own stories going on with Taya and with Rio and all these other people, right? They got their own storylines going on. But imagine if you won an ROH championship belt and you're working both shows, imagine you have the opportunity to go to Tony Khan and be like, listen, I will vacate my belt right now for a championship opportunity. Maybe some people won't like that idea, but for somebody like Willow, it could be really cool in the meantime, because right now it doesn't really make sense for her to go and become champion just yet. But I think she's a star. She looks incredible out there. She gets the reaction. Jamie Hayter came out, still gets a big reaction. It just goes to show you why continuity matters. You know what I mean? It just shows you why it matters. It shows you, it shows you why being on TV truly matters, because the more and more that you're on TV, this type of reaction doesn't happen with AEW Dark. You know, performing in front of Universal, performing in front of the Performance Center at WWE, you know, doing like those smaller intimate shows, you can't really gauge how popular somebody could be. But then you put them in a 6,000 seat arena, 7,000 seat arena, and you look at the reactions that these people get, it's like, okay, don't miss your opportunity to pull the trigger, because with the Acclaim, they almost missed that opportunity, right? With certain individuals, we've seen that happen time and time again. So, you know, I think this is one of those great things for AEW where it's like, just keep doing it, keep applying the show, keep applying these stories to the show, and just try to, you know, have a plan. Really, I think it comes down to having a plan, because if you have a plan for somebody like Willow, and it doesn't have to be a short-term plan, it could be a long-term plan, you know? But if you say, hey, I want Willow to be a world champion by the end of the year, and you put her in some meaningful storylines throughout time, I think it's going to be really, really helpful. And it's going to be good if you stick to your plan. You know, you can't prevent, you know, obviously injuries and stuff happens too. So if that happens, you got to be prepared for that. But if you have a plan to put the belt on Willow at one point, you're going to do everything possible to make sure that she's meaningful before she gets the belt.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. And, with Willow, she definitely is someone that, I can see her getting like the ROH title and then, stepping up from that to, either the TBS or the women's title. But as far as like, say if she became the ROH champion and then tried to use it as an option C.
Yeah.
Do you see a scenario where it devalues the title? Like, in Impact, and there's two things that I can see going on that can work if we went with your scenario, right?
Sure.
If you only use the women, like the ROH titles, as stepping stones to the main, to like AEW titles, it could backfire and kind of just like, make it seem like ROH is like not even developmental, but like PC. Like those titles are absolutely, meaningless, right?
Yeah.
So an option that you can do, because at one point Tony said, hey, the shows are going to be separate from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have Top Flight and the Kingdom feuding, we have storylines bleeding over. So
he lied.
Why not make what happened?
He lied.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly. But why not just make ROH the like the third show? It doesn't have to be like the developmental show or this and that. Just the third show, and the storylines can, when they make sense, cross over. And then in a situation like that, then using option C doesn't seem so bad to just opposed to just using it as, hey, this title, it's cool, but I want something better, so here you go, and just hand it in.
Yeah, the reality is this: with ROH, no matter what anybody tries to say, regardless if you watched ROH in the past or not, ROH was always for a very, 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 very hardcore niche audience. There's a reason why ROH is being taped at Universal compared to being on the road, like AEW is. It's not that big of a brand. It never had that big of a brand. It was always a proving grounds. You go to ROH, and then that opportunity there gets you brought up to WWE. And instead of being Tyler Black, they change you to Seth Rollins. That's how ROH was historically known. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, actually. In fact, I think it's healthy for the wrestling industry to have that, right? I would use ROH as a proving ground for AEW specifically. That's it. Simple as that. Not the third show, not anything other than a proving ground. And then, when you're a champion, that would be one perk to being an ROH champion. Regardless of the title, you have a shot to go up to AEW. Like, hey, like I'm cashing in my opportunity to go into AEW and become a champion. If you lose, you stay in ROH for a year. I don't know. You could come up with preliminary ideas and things to like keep them separate, yet still close, if that makes sense. My point, it kind of sucks, but like it works. You know what I mean? Like it kind of works in reality, because at the end of the day with ROH, I mean, this is the reality. We're going to watch an ROH pay-per-view Friday. Some matches have storylines. Some matches were just announced randomly tonight, like Tanahashi and Daniel Garcia. You have to be part of the tribalists to sit there and complain about this shit, because at the end of the day, ROH historically has always been about wrestling matches. When you really, really look at the history of ROH, yes, there's some stories here and there, but it's always been about, pure rules and, just certain things. With ROH, it's always been a wrestling company. That's probably a shitty way to describe it, but that's historically how it's always been. So it's very easy for somebody who engages in the tribalist bullshit to be like, oh, well, there's no stories. Well, a couple of those matches do have stories, for one, by the way. But two, am I really going to get mad that Tanahashi is fighting Daniel Garcia? No.
Right. Of course not.
But you know what I will be pissed about? If I watch Supercard of Honor and all of these guys that are wrestling on Supercard of Honor get nothing good after the fact. So let's say Daniel Garcia were to defeat Tanahashi, right?
Feed me
if he were to defeat Tanahashi in a banger of a match, but then he goes on to Dynamite and there's no mention of it, they don't build off of that,
Me.
I'm going to be
More.
disappointed. You can tie that match into a story somehow. The story doesn't have to be between Tanahashi and Daniel Garcia, but if Daniel Garcia smoked Tanahashi, I would have Daniel Garcia. The first thing that I would do is cut a promo on Dynamite, be like, I just beat one of the greatest NJPW wrestlers of all time. Nobody can beat me, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, somebody comes out, wants to start a feud with him. See how simple it is? It's simple. Acknowledgement and move on. I did get a super chat from Cameron Johnson. Cameron Johnson dropped a $2 super chat and says, are the ROH tag titles going to be defended soon? Cam, if you don't follow me on Twitter, I know I got you on IG, but if you don't follow me on Twitter, you may have missed it. Tony Khan did announce on a podcast today that ROH is going to be revealing new tag titles at Supercard of Honor because of Jay Briscoe's passing. They felt like the right way to honor him is to retire those designs. I'm super excited to see what the new ROH tag titles look like. I think ROH titles in general should all just be revamped. There's a new brand anyway, so you might as well. But to answer your question, Cam, there are new tag titles, and they are going to be defended at Supercard of Honor in the Reach for the Sky ladder match. It's going to be an incredible ladder match. It's very AEW talent heavy, but I'm just excited to see this. I don't know who's going to win. I'm just excited to see it, and I'm sure they're going to have a very, very, very nice video package in the beginning of the show. I'm sure before the match they'll have a really nice package for Jay Briscoe. And I've said this so many times, but the way that Tony Khan honors talent and legends, forget about how he books a show, forget about booking, forget about business decisions, forget about all that bullshit, because that stuff in the grand scheme of things don't matter. But how he honors talent who have passed away, people who have worked for him, maybe didn't work for him. He does a really good job with it. And I think the new tag titles will be really cool. And I think that match is going to be great. And I just think Supercard of Honor honoring Jay Briscoe will be a very nice thing. Cam, thank you for the super chat. We got another super chat from Mr. Corona for $4.99. Warner Bros. Will look at every other option than picking up Ring of Honor for the time being, unfortunately. And I was actually going to bring this up. So this is a really, really good super chat. Albert, people always say, well, ROH didn't get a TV deal. Why? And, you know, I always look back at Impact Wrestling for a good example. At one point, Impact Wrestling, when they were pitching their show for a TV deal in the UK years and years and years ago, one of the things that was a really big deal was the roster that they had. So this is why Impact was loading up on talent like Kurt Angle, for example. You know, they were bringing in some big names from WWE because when they go to the pitch, the office to do the pitch and say, hey, this is who we're going to have on our show, how would a TV deal or how would a TV network turn that down, right? Oh, you're telling me I can have so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so? Yeah, all these people are big names in the industry. Okay, cool. Like, we want that. We'll give you big money for that. It's worth the investment, right? Now, with ROH, for example, no matter what anybody tries to say here, and again, I have been very, very happy with what we have seen from ROH in the last 3 weeks, by the way. The first 3 episodes of ROH has been pretty freaking awesome. But anybody who knows the history of ROH, anybody who knows what kind of company ROH is, this is not a company that is built off of big names. It's never been. It has never been. If you ask most people, actually I can tell you, because I remember when Seth Rollins was in FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling. I'll never forget this. I only knew who he was because I did YouTube and I watched ROH at the time when he was Tyler Black. Okay? A lot of people saw NXT and they didn't know who Tyler Black was. They didn't know who Seth Rollins was. So my point that I'm trying to make is that we've gotten to a point where ROH was never really about the big names. Have they produced big names? Absolutely. ROH is responsible for a shit ton of amazing talent in the industry. That is why in the history books they'll always be given credit for that. But Warner Media cannot look at Tony Khan's ROH right now and be like, okay, yeah, this is worth it. However, if you look at AEW and forget about what the people, we're just going to call them losers, right? The losers that sit here on Twitter to try to downplay AEW because of ratings. Those people just do it for clout and engagement and tribalism. But Warner Media looks at AEW and says, yeah, you got Chris Jericho. You got Adam Cole. You got who else? Give me some top names right now because it's freaking going past my mind.
We got Moxley.
John Moxley, perfect example.
MJF.
Dean Ambrose, MJF. You have all these big names that have become big stars for AEW. It is so much easier for Warner Media to say yes with the AEW brand and based on the statistics of AEW. Bryan Danielson's another name, right? You have a lot of people, CM Punk, whether you guys want to admit it or not. They have a lot of big names in the industry. Yeah. Kenny Omega, the Bucks. They've had so many big names where AEW to Warner Media, Warner Media could be like, yeah, we want a third show. We want AEW Collision Saturday nights. And it makes sense for AEW and Warner Media to do it because they don't have to pitch them on anything. Right? So when I was talking about the losers who run these tribalism accounts who only sit there to downplay AEW and their ratings because Alvarez comes out and says Rampage did 200,000 viewers or whatever, they just exist. They're troll accounts. They're bullshit. Unfortunately, that's what the Twitter algorithm is recommending to everybody on the For You page. But realistically, Warner Media is looking at this stuff and, it makes sense for AEW to get a show like All Access. It makes sense for AEW to do Battle of the Belts. It makes sense for AEW to do potentially AEW Collision and Rampage and all these things. I think Warner Media is the best television partner right now. And I've said this so many times. By the way, this just goes to show you how long I've been doing YouTube. Before AEW existed, when I was told that there was going to be a new wrestling company, I remember making the video and saying it's going to be Warner Media who gets involved. Based on my real world job at the time, I was told that Warner Media, Warner Bros, whatever, they had a big plan to get involved with live sports. They were going to get more involved with it. This was before Discovery ever got involved. And man, they had a great relationship right off the rip with Tony Khan. Now look, later on, they merge with Warner Media Discovery, and the relationship is stronger than ever. So it never made sense for ROH to get a TV deal, unfortunately, but it always makes sense for AEW to grow. They have the best TV partner, and I think right now, Albert, I'll be honest with you, when I look at ROH, business-wise, it doesn't really make sense for Tony Khan to continue operating it, but I think Tony Khan has found a way to keep it where, from a business side of things, he doesn't have to go and pay a whole bunch of new talent. A lot of people come from AEW or they're from the indies. He's not signing, for example, it's not like WWE has Randy Orton. We'll just use Randy Orton as example. It's not like Tony Khan is going to be like, oh, Randy Orton's a free agent, let me bring him into ROH. No, because ROH is not going to be justifiable. They don't make the money to justify signing Randy Orton to a multi-million-dollar contract. What Tony Khan would do is probably sign Randy Orton to AEW, and then maybe one day put him on ROH. And I'm using a hypothetical situation with a hypothetical name, but nobody of any real significant value contract-wise would ever be signed to ROH specifically for ROH. It's just not going to happen because ROH doesn't make that type of money, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it leads me to my next point, which is Corey dropped a $2 super chat, and he says ROH could be Tony's version of NXT for AEW. And I actually 1,000,000%, the more and more that I see it, I think this should be the case. It should. It should be the proving grounds for AEW. You go to ROH, you wrestle on ROH, you win championships in ROH, you're on the Honor Club, you do the pay-per-views, get more popular, get better in the ring, and then eventually get called up to the main roster. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, not at all. No. I agree. And for me, as an ROH fan, a lot of the people that he's brought back from the last era, Silas Young, Shane Taylor, Dalton Castle and the boys, Josh Woods, Hot Sauce Tracy Williams, that's the ROH that I am a fan of, and that's why even though it's an Honor Club, I'm a fan, I watch it, and I don't need it. Yeah, I agree. I don't need it to be anything big. I don't even need Claudio to be here.
Yeah.
He can drop the belt to Kingston, stay on AEW, because he's really not needed. It's great that he's there, but it's not needed. And as far as like becoming, NXT of AEW, if it's something that was committed to, And I mean where Tony put somebody in place to, do this, I could absolutely get behind it. But if he's going to do it on his own and juggle everything else, it'll work for a week or two and then just be like everything else that he plays with, so it's a great thing that can happen if it could be executed properly.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? It's just all about execution. And I don't know, I guess the reason why I firmly believe that sorry. Give me 1 second. One second, my bad.
That's good.
My cousin texted me, he goes, "Oh, Young Bucks retired?" Question mark. Just goes to show you how social media is, by the way. On all access, I guess something got brought up where the Young Bucks were talking about how they probably would have retired or something. And I don't know the full context of it. I haven't watched All Access, but people on Twitter just tweet out Young Bucks retirement question mark or whatever, and he's like, "Bro, are they retired or what?" So it just goes to show you why social media is freaking bullshit. But anyways,
it is, yeah.
Anyways, let's continue. As you were saying, I know you were saying some stuff, and then I said some stuff, but really, what I think I kind of just want to mention this too is like with ROH. I'm sorry. Got to get back on track. With ROH, one of the things I've kind of noticed too that I kind of want to point out was like, because we talk about workload for Tony Khan, is you don't even really need Tony Khan to do much other than decide who he wants to be utilized, right? So like, do you remember when Vince McMahon was running the main roster, but then he would go to Triple H and be like, "All right, you take care of NXT and do your thing," right? And then when it came time for call-up, then that's when Vince McMahon would get involved, right? I'm not saying it's a perfect system because Tony Khan, I mean, I can't say it would be a perfect system because I don't know if Tony Khan would resemble Vince McMahon in this situation, but like, I think it would be a good idea for Tony Khan to have somebody, maybe Jerry Lynn, I don't know, Jim Ross, I don't know, I'm just throwing names, but hey, you run ROH, this is your roster, this is who I want on AEW television by 6 months. Build momentum, build them in a great storyline. In 6 months, we'll reevaluate and see if we call them up. Tony Khan gives them a to-do list every single week. Hey, this is, what we're doing. They check in with Tony Khan. Tony Khan gives them thumbs up, thumbs down. He doesn't have to be micromanaging the shit out of it. He just needs to have somebody help out, really, and then that right there would be beneficial, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And I mean, and the thing is that he has ROH veterans backstage. BJ Whitmer.
Yeah.
He's got Cole Cabana. He's got Dean Malenko. He's got people that he can put in position to help him, kind of like Triple H has William Regal.
Yeah.
He's got Jamie Noble. He has his trusted people, and that's what Tony needs. He needs that inner circle, that he can go to, so he doesn't have to be doing everything on his own.
It's so sad that every time we have to talk about AEW, it has to be in comparison to WWE. But like, forget about booking, forget about creative. If you just think for a second about how structurally WWE works, the reason why, and like I feel bad, man. I feel bad saying this, but the reason why WWE, you don't hear issues of WWE and the drama and things like that is because they have structure. And I think there's a lot of things that happen in WWE that we don't know about because of how strong their structure is. And Tony Khan, I feel like with AEW, it kind of runs in a way, it's almost like a free-for-all with certain things. They have a buddy-buddy system. I think that's very possible. I think there's a lot of things like that where if AEW can kind of, not AEW, if Tony Khan as a leader can delegate more tasks and yeah, I think if he could delegate more tasks, have somebody run ROH, I think there's less workload on him. I think there's less drama being talked about. I think there's less issues with creative. There's more consistency with good television. I think there's just so many ways for Tony Khan to benefit just by making some small changes, you know? I always remember back to, and I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember when Cody, it was reported that one time Cody and the Bucks and everybody had lost. It was like the first 8 months of AEW. They all lost a little bit of their creative control and some of their things that they were supposed to do because Tony Khan wanted to take over the books. Do you remember that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, I remember at that time, a lot of people compared him to Vince. They're like, oh, well, that sounds like a Vince McMahon move. The thing is, like, at the end of the day, when you own a business and you're the one forking over the money, and this is why, like, of course, I'll always come up with my own ideas, but I'm not the one who has billions of dollars on the line, right? Like, let's make that fucking clear. For those who don't understand, I might come up with ideas and say AEW should do this, AEW should do that, WWE should do this, WWE should do that. There's a million people who can say what they want about what they would do. At the end of the day, we're not the ones with the risk with the money. So let me make that very clear. However,
Right.
Tony Khan, being super incredibly rich, should put people that he trusts. So it's a very low risk situation. So that way, like WWE with William Regal, as an example, if he said, William Regal, run NXT, this is your budget monthly, make it work. You know? Yeah, you trust William Regal, but you understand that if William Regal flops, that's the risk of losing potentially some big money. At that point, you would have to fire William Regal, right? So,
Exactly.
again,
Yeah.
I'm just using hypotheticals, but I feel like if Tony Khan could find some people to trust, and then he says, hey, I'm going to give you some serious money, this is your budget, this is what you got to work with, this is what I want you to do, and these people are delivering great results, Tony Khan doesn't have to fire anybody. Tony Khan can take less workload, and on top of that, they get a better product, less issues. I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I just think the right leaders, the best leaders in the world, wrestling fans hate this concept for some reason, but the best leaders in the world are the ones that hardly do any work. And the reason why is because very, very smart leaders out there spend their money wisely and invest in people who will do all the hard work for them. And that's the truth. So Tony Khan and Tony Khan, that's how AEW and ROH differ from WWE, because Tony Khan is in a situation where it looks, I'm sure he gets help, don't get me wrong, but it appears that he's the one who is doing absolutely everything. And
Right. Exactly.
if that's true or false, I don't know, because again, we're not backstage, but it just looks like he's the one doing everything. And look, last 3 weeks of AEW television have been amazing, right? ROH has been great since it's shown up. I think the new version of ROH is great. I think it reminds me a lot of the old school ROH with a little bit of AEW taste. You know, it has a little bit of that AEW taste. But I imagine with all this drama that's being talked about and all the bullshit that's being talked about with AEW, I just think it probably gets a lot better with Tony Khan kind of fixing the structure backstage. And I think we would see a whole different product. I don't think we would see what happened in 2022 to AEW, you know?
Absolutely. Yep. Exactly. And, part of the problem is that he purposely, wants to do everything on his own. He takes everything on his own instead of, using the tools that he has, and that's what makes it really frustrating. Like, dude, you don't need to do everything by yourself. You have veterans that you purposely brought in, use them, and it would be great, but it's been great for a couple weeks now. So let's see,
The common trend, by the way, with AEW having great television, it's just follow-ups with stories. That's it. It's not even the quality of storyline. Okay, I lied. The Elite and the BCC thing is a really, really high-quality story. But everything else, I'm not even looking at the quality of the storyline. I just like the fact that every single week I'm like, oh, what's going to happen next? Juice Robinson and Ricky Starks, it's like random. It kind of doesn't make sense, but they've been building it for weeks. Cool. Let's get to it. There's continuity with all these stories and all these things happening on TV, and it just, some people hate it because I'm not gonna lie. Some people believe AEW should not be doing storylines. There's a huge percentage of people I see leaving comments in my chat or Discord or YouTube where it's like, no, I want AEW for its matches. I don't think a wrestling company will survive off of being a super indie. Just good wrestling matches. I think
exactly.
In America, North America, in the United States, the real money is television. That's not a joke. Like that's some real shit. The TV deals pay a serious amount of money these days. Advertisers are paying a serious amount of money these days. The real money is in television. So the best thing you could do is create compelling television. AEW, when they focus on stories, we see that people are more invested. When they're not focused on stories and all they're doing is just putting together random matches, we see that people are less invested. This is backed by like actual statistics. And I want to make this also very clear because I like both. I like good matches and I like good stories, right? But I will say this for the millionth time. It's not about everything happening on TV needs to be a story. Not every match needs a story. That's my point. My argument has never been that every single match that happens on every single television show needs to have a story associated with it. However, if somebody's involved in a match and there's not a story attached to that specific match, how will you progress that person's existing story? And that right there is something that we're seeing a lot of in wrestling right now, which is good because guess what it makes me want to do? It makes me want to watch next week. And that's all I want to do is just keep looking forward to wrestling. Otherwise, we'll get to what happened last summer where I was like, okay, I'd rather go out than watch wrestling. Simple as that.
Right.
Simple as that. Because guess what? People hate Albert. You know, I've talked about this before. People say, WWE says, oh, our competition is TikTok. Our competition is, everyday things. It's not just wrestling. It's not just sports. It's not just television. It's everything, right? We've heard WWE say this so many times. And then I really, really thought about it. I'm going to open up a little bit of the curtain, right? As a content creator, I'll tell you guys, as a YouTuber, people look at the YouTube algorithm and they look at the homepage because at the end of the day, your videos are side by side by side by side by side, right? Now, YouTubers think, oh, my content is competing with this person's content, this person's content, this person's content. Until you realize if wrestling is shitty, people probably aren't watching wrestling content on YouTube, right? Not saying that everybody won't watch a YouTube video because maybe they'd rather get their highlights and stuff from a YouTube video versus a 2-hour episode of Dynamite or Raw or SmackDown or whatever. But ideally, if wrestling is low, YouTube is probably low, right? But also, what if I just normally just grow up? Maybe I want to go hang out with my friends. Maybe I want to go out to dinner with my girlfriend. Maybe I want to go to a basketball game. Well, if Ango uploads a YouTube video that day, and I'm going to a basketball game, and I'm going out to dinner, and I'm doing all of these different things, guess what? I'm probably not going to watch Ango's video. It's probably not going to be a priority. I'll just get the next one. So at the end of the day, Tony Khan and AEW, Triple H and WWE, they're competing with absolutely all aspects of life. Because there are so many things going on in 24 hours, and when you really think about it, 24 hours is not that much time. So, unless you're taking a shit on the toilet and you're bringing your iPad with you to watch Dynamite, they're competing with that too. It sounds silly, but everything that's literally going on, it's really one of those things where I just think AEW has a lot to compete with. It's not just WWE, and I just want to see them put out the best possible product. Lately, they have been putting out such a great product where it's like, look, next Wednesday, I want to watch it. That's what I want to do. I want to watch next week. I cannot wait to see, and I get it. Some people just don't like Jericho, and that's fine. But I cannot wait to see what happens next week with Chris Jericho and with Adam Cole.
Adam Cole, yeah.
I can't wait. I missed Adam Cole. It felt good to see him. Oh, by the way, we haven't even got to the point of Adam Cole not being alongside Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. We haven't seen him alongside the Elite. Where's Hangman? Where's Kenny? Where's all those guys? Right? So now they got their own storyline going on. Do wrestling fans think that it might not cross paths at one point? I think it will.
Yeah, it has to. Absolutely.
We got a super chat from Rick Corrales. What's up, Rick? $5 super chat. Is Luchasaurus due for a repackage? He needs to be more than a stooge. Someone's stooge. I have a very interesting opinion on Luchasaurus. But Albert, I actually think you typically have some really good ideas and stuff with repackages and pushes, and I would just love to hear your opinion on this.
On Luchasaurus, I say if you're going to push him as a monster heel, the mask comes off. Take it off. Just make him a human monster, who just you unleash on the roster, but you don't need the mask anymore. The gimmick is always going to be tied to who you are if you're Luchasaurus the dinosaur. So I think, it has to come off, so he could be taken seriously. And he could be a great heel in AEW.
Yeah. I think the ship sailed, to be honest.
Well, I don't think you make him a world champion or anything, but he can have a good run, as a monster that, the babyface overcomes. He can have a place in AEW if you want to give him that.
I'll be honest with you, I don't. I like Luchasaurus, okay? And this is going to bother some people. And it sucks because I don't want people to take this the wrong way. Do you remember God, what was his name? Marco Stunt. Shit, I almost forgot his name. Marco Stunt.
Yeah.
I remember being at Double or Nothing. Marco Stunt, Luchasaurus, Jack Perry. Was it Double or Nothing or All Out? I can't remember. It was one of them. The crowd reaction for these guys was insane. And I remember the major consensus at the time was Jack Perry, Jungle Boy, was the future, which made sense. He had the character. He's not wearing a dinosaur mask. A lot of people believe that Jack Perry was the star of the group.
Right.
I love everything that happened with Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. That was one of the better stories in the past year. However, I think ever since they split up, I lost all belief in Luchasaurus.
Okay.
I really do. He's a hell of a talent. Judas Devlin, by the way, if you guys didn't watch NXT, he was in WWE. A lot of people don't know that. He's a great talent. But I feel like the popularity for all of those guys was at that time. I think even Jack Perry is pretty popular now, and I thought he did a great job tonight with MJF. But it's one of those things where...
So you feel the three of them work better together than separately? Yeah,
and I get that a lot of people might not like this because I get it. Marco Stunt's 5'2". He's short, he's not really a threat in the ring. But at the end of the day, if we care about characters like Orange Cassidy, why can't we care about characters like Marco Stunt? You look at that faction they had, and then they didn't even have trios championships at that point. But I don't know. I thought that was sick back then. And I just remember hearing the reaction was insane. So, unfortunately, it's just I want to get excited about Luchasaurus because I look at him like AEW's version of Kane. His theme music is kind of similar. There's a lot of possibilities there. Better worker than Kane. Way more entertaining than Kane in terms of in-ring stuff. I don't know. I guess there was that I feel like that could have been so much more. And also SCU is another example. I know that's not really relevant to the super chat.
On that.
Yeah, but but think about that. People forget those were two very, 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 very hot acts. It's a different company. The company that AEW was at that time versus now, it's a very different company. And there's things about that time period which I wish AEW still remained and stayed true to. But they definitely did not do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Completely agree.
Rick, thank you for the super chat. Albert, let me ask you another question because I'm just curious. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm sorry. We got people spamming the chat. That's so annoying.
Yeah,
well, the good news is you do have to be subscribed to the channel to even write a comment in the chat. So I guess thank you. Getting closer to 100K. What was I saying? I'm sorry. I was going to ask you another question, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Because you told me not to get you started on SCU. It has no relevance to the show at all whatsoever, but you said that, so I'm curious. What was your thoughts on SCU?
No, so it's not even that. It's just that I saw Scorpio Sky post a pic on Twitter of him and Ethan Page sitting together, just looking menacing, just posing together. And it just made me think back to Men of the Year. They had so much potential as a tag team.
Yeah.
They could have done so good. And when they got hooked up with Lambert and everything, it just kind of got convoluted, and here we are. Where's Scorpio now?
Yeah. The injury, I think, screwed everything up. Sadly.
Right, but I mean, now he's been back. He's been cleared for how long now? And nothing. So it's just one of those things, he's majorly been misused big time.
There's a lot of guys misused. That's never going to change.
No, I know, but that picture just it triggered it today. That's why. But no, yeah, of course. I mean, Andrade, Miro, it's a long list.
You know what I do miss, though? I miss Dan Lambert. I really do, bro. Think about it. It was fun.
I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. But, but again, still, no. But yeah, I mean, Scorpio definitely should be a world champion right now. But so should Swerve, and look at how that's turned out. Keith Lee, So for all the good, there's still a lot of bad.
There is no company that's going to be perfect.
No, of course, yeah. But hey, so I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because you brought up Luchasaurus.
Yeah. So
let's say with Daniel Garcia,
yep.
Do we pull him out at some point and let him have a solo run, or is he someone that needs to be in a faction to work good?
Oh no, Daniel Garcia is a singles guy. He's a future star for sure, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. I think Daniel Garcia is one of those guys where I think him being, well, we kind of saw it, right? We when was it? It was last week, I think. He kind of slipped up and he said he was the best pro wrestler, and then he corrected himself. He said he was the best sports entertainer. That was last week.
Right.
Yeah. And your question is whether or not he could be a solo guy. Does he need JAS? I mean, maybe people won't like that I have to say this, but I think Jericho Appreciation Society has definitely overran its, I think it's been overdone at this point. But at the same time too, I'm not worried about JAS taking up TV time, because at the very minimum, it's getting people on TV and people are working with them. And we saw Andretti and Ricky Starks get that by working, they got that opportunity to work with JAS and be part of a good storyline. I think, when I look at Daniel Garcia, I don't think he needs Jericho Appreciation Society, but I think a lot of that is just based on, he's the pro wrestler. He's the best pro wrestler. And, there's a lot of things that they can do with him. And if there's one decision that AEW made that was really, really good, it was not putting him with BCC. Because of the fact that it's not happening yet, but that official moment where Daniel Garcia actually leaves Jericho Appreciation Society, I think that's the moment where it's evidently clear to everybody with that reaction that he is going to be a top guy in this company for years to come. So no, I don't think he needs to be with JAS. But eventually it will be nice when he splits away from them.
Okay. And what's going on with the House of Black?
In terms of what?
No Buddy Murphy. We've only really seen Brody, lately. Yeah. Are they injured?
I think Buddy,
or is it just storyline?
I thought Buddy was injured. Let me check. Let me see. I don't even want to look it up right now. It's taking too much to search. I could have sworn that he was injured or visa or something. There was something that was causing him to not be on television. As far as House of Black goes, I mean, look, this is a flaw of the show, right? I mean, just realistically, if you look at AEW, so many things improved, right? So many things improved, but with all those improvements, what took a back seat? House of Black.
Right. Yeah.
So whatever is going on, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but all of a sudden, the Trios Championship belts have taken a back seat. With that, though, I do want to make it clear for Rampage, they did announce that it was Brody King and Malachi Black versus... Who are they versing? I know they announced the match. Was it 2.0? I can't remember.
I can't remember who it was.
Best Friends. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I was like, I know they're kind of working against like a comedy group, so I'm sure they'll win. And I'm sure they'll look good and they'll look strong. And maybe that's going to be... I mean, it seems like that's the direction that they're going anyways with Best Friends and House of Black. So maybe that will happen at like Double or Nothing or something. I don't know. I don't know, man. With House of Black, they're such a great group of people, and I just think they deserve better. I think Malachi Black could be a world champion, and it's I'm scared. Yeah. I mean, you could tell me what you think, but like I'm scared that AEW is going to keep the belt on MJF for so long, where it kind of becomes the Roman Reigns issue. You keep the belt for so long, and
don't even say it. Don't even say it.
All right, I won't say it.
But I can see it happening. Yeah, I can see it happening. But please, no. I don't want to jinx it. Please, no.
I just want to see guys like Malachi Black become a world champion. I want to see guys like Miro become a world champion. I want to see guys like Andrade become a world champion. I want to see guys like
Wardlow.
Wardlow, yeah. I want to see guys like Wardlow, and I want to see guys like Scorpio Sky, and I want to see guys like Powerhouse Hobbs, and I want to see a whole bunch of talent that, they're so good and they could be a world champion. They just got to be put in that position. And right now, if they're not in that position, if they're not on TV, it's hard to say, like AEW did a really good job of putting their top names. Okay. Top names held the belts, right? Jericho, Moxley, Punk, right? Guys like that held the belts. Hangman, right?
Omega.
Was Hangman champion? I can't even remember now. I feel like I'm...
Yeah. I mean, it was not memorable, but yeah.
Yeah, it was not like... Yeah. Kenny Omega as well, right? So
yeah.
I look at these names that have held the belt, and that's great. But look at like Darby and Sammy. And I don't even care for Sammy Guevara, but like it will be a really cool day when you have those young guys win the titles, guys like Malachi as well, coming from WWE. Guys like Swerve. Oh my God. I've been saying it since day one. I'll never forget when I made that video talking about Swerve and Strickland tag teaming. I was like, okay, like cool, but Swerve and Keith Lee could both be world champion material. It's a weird thing to put him on a tag team, but it was very clear from the start that AEW didn't see him as a top guy like that. Not saying that they disrespected him or ruined him or anything like that, but it just would have been cool for them to put Swerve right at the very top, because I feel like he could hold it down as champion. So once we see some of those guys who aren't Hangman, who aren't Bryan, who aren't those really, really, really big names, once we see some of those people actually win the championship belt, that's when I'll be really, really satisfied with AEW. Until that happens, though, I'm always going to question what they're doing. And I get it. The company's still relatively young. I'm sure there's business decisions that go into that. But the day where guys like Darby and guys like Sammy Guevara and just some of those names we listed, Wardlow, like when those guys win the world championship, to me, it's going to feel like a new era with AEW, and I think that's going to be a really special moment.
Right, exactly. And if you notice, they're starting to do that with the tag titles. The Acclaimed were champions. Yep. Now the Guns are champions. And these are two young teams that are going to be the future. So there are things that are that are starting to work, yep, starting to go in the right direction. But still a lot to improve upon. But
and they did that too with the International Championship. International Championship was originally held by PAC. Now look at who holds the championship. It's Orange Cassidy. Don't get it twisted. He's still the future of AEW too. So it's cool that they've done that, but they got to do that for the World Championship. And I'm not saying Darby Allin or some of these people right now are worthy of the championship, but we got to get to the point where we're building them up. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like the 4 pillars so much, the 4 pillar storyline. Like, I like the fact that like Jungle Boy got in the face of MJF and he held his own on the mic. It's typically one of those weakest things that, he's kind of weak on the mic historically. He's improved. I think the feud with Christian has made him feel very good and confident, and he's killing it right now. So his promo with MJF was awesome, but then also, too, it's like, if MJF beats him in a singles match, okay, that's cool. If MJF beats everybody in a singles match, but then the Fatal 4-Way comes around and you crown a new champion, I mean, that's just beautiful booking. That's intelligent. MJF looks strong, and then when it comes to really matter in a Fatal 4-Way, he loses to, like, Jungle Boy or Sammy or Darby. If that were to happen, I mean, that would just be insane, That'd be really fun. It'd be a really good decision.
No, absolutely. And while MJF and Jungle Boy feud, I'd love to see Sammy and Darby go at it, because those two are high flyers, and they'll have a great match and a great feud.
And you have people who say MJF doesn't know how to work in the ring. Oh, he's only good on the mic. But he had arguably one of the best matches in AEW history with Bryan Danielson. And they both contributed to that. It wasn't Bryan just carrying him on his back. It was both guys doing incredible stuff,
Absolutely. Yep, exactly.
So
yeah, I mean, he's done a great job of, showing that, he can go, that he's not just a talker, and he's still, improving. So, I'm great with MJF right now.
I think MJF is great.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think about, who should be the first person that beats him, Do you want to go with the veteran, the safe bet, or, go with one of the pillars to knock him out, and which one, I think for me, if you go with one of the pillars, it has to be Jungle Boy. I think he's the one who really needs that push, The other ones have tasted gold. They've had the singles, runs and everything, but Jungle Boy, he needs that.
I mean, yes, but also, if you're going off babyface, right? I think he's ideally the best decision. I think Jungle Boy is better as a babyface in that situation, yeah, to win. Right, yeah. If you keep it as a heel, if you keep it on a heel, I guess Sammy Guevara technically is still a heel. So Sammy could be a good heel, but I don't want to see the championship belt go from heel to heel, to be honest.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. And between the three, Sammy is the third pick, because I'll take Darby over Sammy.
No, I wouldn't actually.
Really?
Yeah. Believe it or not, I wouldn't.
Okay. Why?
Yeah. Because Albert, the thing about Darby is Darby has done a lot of great things. Okay. Let me explain this in a way where I'm probably going to sound like a dickhead. Okay. I really, 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 really love the way AEW has booked Sting. I would say the major consensus with most people is like AEW has done right by Sting, right?
Yeah.
I think at some point Darby versus Sting is the retirement match for Sting. Is that something we could agree on?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So if that's the case, and this is where it gets tricky, right? Because again, we've listed so many people who could be a world champion. But if Darby were to win the championship, I don't want him to be holding the belt and not really do anything with it. However, something more impactful is one day having Sting win the world championship. And I know this is a hot take that people will fucking absolutely bury, but I don't care. I don't give a shit. I would have Sting at one point win the championship, then have Darby be the guy to beat Sting. Like, that's how I envision Darby winning the championship for AEW, retiring Sting, and taking the title, right? That, you have to get to a point where Sting wins the title for that to work.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think Tony Khan would do that.
MJF?
That's what I'm saying.
Does he beat MJF, or?
I don't think Tony Khan would ever do that. So I don't think that'll ever be a situation.
And he should. Yeah.
However, that's why I wouldn't want Darby winning, because I only want Darby to win the belt if it was something where he got to retire Sting or work with Sting. You know what I mean?
Okay. I can see that. I can see where you're coming from, yeah. And I agree that, Darby should be the only person that retires Sting. He's earned it, so, But as far as Sting winning, for then Darby to take it, I'm not. I get double J vibes when I hear stuff like that. I'm not too sure about that. But it's AEW. Anything can happen. So
that's where Tony Khan gets his credit, though. Tony Khan gets his credit for the way he's handled Legends. So
yeah,
it just sucks that it would have to happen. It sucks that it's 2023 and that's the topic, right? Because if this was when Sting was in TNA,
yes.
I mean, imagine Darby and TNA at the time.
Yeah.
I just think that's kind of how I see it, but I don't know, man. It's just I think Sammy would be the better. Sammy's the better pick than Darby for that reason. And hate me if people want to hate me, that's fine. But that's just how I fucking feel.
But Jungle Boy's your first pick.
Yeah, if we're changing the titles, I would go in on Jungle Boy.
Okay, all right. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Well, think about it too. If for Jungle Boy, he's no longer with Luchasaurus. They're not doing that faction, obviously, with Marco Stunt and Luchasaurus. He's one of the 4 pillars. He's a baby face. He's extremely over. He gets great crowd reactions. Him being the guy to beat MJF would be great. But then I think what's really cool is if you want somebody to take the belt off of Jungle Boy, you have 2 other pillars that can do it,
Right.
I mean, that's the era of AEW that I look forward to. That's the one I like. Yeah. That's for me. That would be like the money. And I think that's just because I've watched a lot of these guys before AEW existed. I was there for the very, very first AEW event. It's just nice to see, that happen eventually when one of those guys win. And it's tough because how does that result in terms of business decisions for AEW? Like, that's a real question. Like, how does that, and profits and losses, and can these guys really draw a big crowd? I don't know. That's such a stupid shit thing to fucking debate, because I don't care about, and it's okay. So Albert, for example, I see people, they all talk about like, oh, well, you got to put it, back in the day, a world champion was supposed to draw house shows and this and that and blah, blah, blah. AEW at the end of the day, and wrestling at the end of the day, is all about TV deals. AEW announced 2 house shows today, but that's not their primary business. It's not WWE's primary business. Whereas back in the day, without television, your goal was to go and sell tickets, right? So I don't want to be talking about, oh, well, can this world champion sell tickets? Because I think to a certain extent, they're going to have to. But overall, if the television product is hot, regardless of who's champion, people will go and watch the TV show, right? So I think from a business standpoint, I can't sit here and say, oh, well, Darby's going to draw, Jungle Boy's going to draw, Jungle Boy, this and that, whatever. I don't really care about talking about analytics like that, because for me personally, I just don't really see how it's relevant to me. From a entertainment standpoint, I think any one of those guys can win the belt and it'll be somewhat entertaining. So Jungle Boy is probably the one who would be the most entertaining, but then you can actually have him drop the belt to other people, and then it's fine. You can always do a David Goliath storylines. They have a couple big guys in the roster. You can always do that too. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Eventually, Hobbs is going to move up to the main, title picture too, and that's when you're going to have a big guy competing with the smaller guys. So yeah, that's going to be great. But also, at some point, Jericho, Mox, they're going to retire. And the pillars and the rest of the roster, they're the ones who are going to carry the division. So, they definitely have, this time to develop and get to that point.
A lot of these guys are so talented, man. So we got to start looking at the new wave, right? Jericho's not going to be there forever. Sting's not going to be there forever. Jon Moxley won't be there forever. Kenny Omega won't be there forever. Guys will come and go. So who's really the next crop of talent that will become the big name and become the big draws and become the big part of AEW's future? I guess that's a real serious thing to look into and to discuss. But right now, I look at those 4 pillars. I look at there's quite a few talent who could be a world champion, and not everybody's going to be able to get it. And by the way, we talked about Malachi and all those other guys too. So It's just like those singles titles, they need to be valuable or just as valuable as the world champion. And then people winning those belts, it'll still be a good accomplishment.
Right. And that's the big thing. You have 3 singles titles. If you can make each one feel important, that's going to benefit your show so much. It's going to make everything feel meaningful. You have to elevate the titles, and you have a great roster. So, you have to, use them. But I feel good about the future. AEW is still 4 years old, Impact 20 years, and they've been hearing they're going, under for the last 20 years, so
why? Why though? Why did that happen to Impact? Because the reality is the people that talk about Impact and how they made it 20 years, it was not an easy 20 years of surviving. Impact survived because they finally had a new ownership that implemented a structure to the company, that implemented good storylines and signing people. And I think ideally one of the things I love most about Impact was they're not signing Kenny Omega. They're not signing Jay White. They're not signing Bryan Danielson. Yet those people who actually watch their show on Thursday nights enjoy the show. And they're doing it with names that may not be the biggest names. They survived 20 years. They went through a lot of ups and downs, but they have structure. So every company is going to have ups and downs, but every company could also learn from Impact and realize, hey, make some changes. Do some things backstage, with creative, and get people invested in making the product better. Utilize them. I think that's the thing that Impact has done so well with. Bro, I was just at Impact and I watched fucking Tommy Dreamer and Bully Ray have a great match, and there's a storyline, and there's all these great things. I listened to the crowd and the way they popped for it.
That crowd was insane for that pay-per-view, yo.
That crowd was insane. Windsor, Canada, oh my God. It was amazing. And every seat was taken. It was hard to move around because it's so packed. I think Impact, I'm doing live review shows for Impact and ROH every Thursday starting next week. Spoiler alert, yeah, it's coming. I was going to announce it tomorrow after Impact, but whatever.
Nice.
I like Impact, but look how they survived. They didn't survive because they had a billionaire Tony Khan money. They survived because the company that bought Impact realized, hey, this brand needs change. And part of those changes maybe resulted in them signing not some of the biggest names, but they brought in good, talented workers. And so those contracts are obviously less expensive than a Bryan Danielson contract. But the thing is, they're still doing good television. It's like Impact knows their role and they stick to it. They know what they're supposed to be and they stick to it. And when they have that identity and they understand what they're doing, to me, I think every company can learn from that and say, man, we have more money than Impact. We can do the same thing and be fine. And I just think Impact has done a really good job of surviving because of Anthem. And there was a time period where I can say I was not too fond of Anthem taking over. I was not too fond of Billy Corgan taking over. I was not too fond of Dixie Carter giving the creative reins to Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and everything that they did to ruin the company. Yep. But Anthem is the company that owns Impact Wrestling today. And you look at Impact Wrestling and they just have a great product. And then people talk about presentation. I don't know if it has something to do with Access TV. I can't really say. But I see how Impact is produced. They don't need new production. I don't know what the hell is going on there, but I'll say that I don't think they need new production at all.
Agreed. Yeah, and
I was there and I saw firsthand. I saw what they're working with. They don't need new production. That's actually the biggest lie I think that's been discussed online. Impact set is actually a really nice set. I think Impact can do better with a better TV deal. I think Impact can do better maybe being live every week. Maybe that could be a great help. Maybe Impact
that would be great.
Having maybe working on their relationship with AEW could potentially help Impact. I don't know. But guess what? If they keep doing what they're doing, and I believe this, I wholeheartedly believe this, I say this all the time, it's all about process. Having a vision and having a process. It's so easy for people to be so reactionary, but if you look at Impact, look how far they've come since Anthem has owned the company. There was a time, by the way, Albert, I'll point this out. My biggest gripe about Impact was there was a time where their specials on, back then it was on Twitch. It'd be on Twitch or YouTube or whatever, but they would do those live specials, kind of like how we saw with Sacrifice or Under Siege or whatever. They would do those, and there was like never title changes. There was never really stories going into them. They were just kind of like matches and stuff, and it was fine. But in the past like year or two, there's been a really big commitment to those Impact Plus specials. They feel like pay-per-views. They're pay-per-views in my opinion. I refer to them as pay-per-views. And they're on Impact Plus, they're on Impact Insiders. So I look at that and I said, wow, Impact just in a short period of time has improved, and they're telling stories and they're doing all these different things, and they're doing it on those episodes on Friday nights on Impact Plus. There's value to owning Impact Plus. It's the greatest $8 that I spend a month because they do so much. So my point that I want to make is like, companies can learn from Impact, and the companies that can learn from Impact have way more money than Impact. They have better TV deals than Impact. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that they have money and they could bring in Bryan Danielsons and they could bring in Adam Coles and they could do all those things. Impact don't need those guys to survive. They just showed us. They don't need to. Right?
Yeah.
So how did Impact survive? They did the right thing.
Yeah. No, and the beautiful thing is that they don't have a big roster. They have a core group. And, they bring in talent on per appearance deals, but they have a core group. And if one talent goes to AEW, one goes to WWE, another one comes in. They just brought in Kaylin King.
Yeah.
And now she's, tag team champion. They have the formula and they know how to use it, and it works for them, and they don't need to be AEW or WWE. And when people complain about the presentation, that's what I think, that they want it to be like the WWE, but that's not what they are. Impact is what I want ROH to be consistently. That's what I want it to be.
And look at Impact. Their TV ratings are about 100K roughly. And I don't care for ratings and stuff, but it's pretty significant for Impact because they own the TV network. But that's 100K. Okay, let's just say, for example, Impact had a TV deal with Warner Media. Would it do 1 million like AEW? I don't think so. Personally.
Yeah.
But do I think they would do less than 100K? No, I think they would do 3 to 4 or 500,000 just like Rampage. Maybe even 600K.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see like the 3 to 5 range. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see them improving their numbers, which, again, this is all hypotheticals and speculations and stuff like that. I can 100% say right now, I did not hear anything about this from anybody of Impact. I am referring to things that have been tweeted, and I'm talking about things that have been reported. But there was rumors that Impact was expected to have a new set, a new TV deal. I forgot who it was. I think it was Earl Hebner a couple months ago talked about Impact possibly selling their TV rights for a new TV deal, potentially going on a streaming service or something like that. And we talked about it on the channel. I did not ask anybody. I did not talk to anybody about it at WWE, at Impact. But I look at what WWE and AEW has done, and they have very, 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 very good TV partners. And I always like the fact that Impact has a great TV partner because they own it. Anthem owns Access TV. So they have a great relationship with their TV partner, right?
Exactly, yeah. They're good.
But I think you would have to be really silly to sit there and say Impact can't benefit from, to say Impact wouldn't benefit or see an increase in viewership if they were on a better TV partner, with a better TV partner.
Of course, yeah. You're really limited with being on Access. That is really not available to everybody. I'm a YouTube insider.
Yeah.
That's how I watch them. So,
and let me ask you, because I don't do the Ultimate Insider because I use Impact Plus. But what other benefits do you get other than the weekly TV show? Because you get more, right? You get the weekly TV show, and then what else do they give you?
All the premium live events except for the big four.
So you're getting all the specials as well.
Yeah, you get them all live.
Wow.
And it's $4.99 a month.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not telling people to go and spend I'm not telling people to go spend their hard-earned money on anything that they can't afford or can't afford. You know, that's everybody has to make the financial choice themselves. Because I pay $7.99 for Impact Plus, and I will say the reason why I find it so valuable is for two reasons. One, TNA has an incredible tape library, that's for sure. I have Access TV on my provider, but also Impact specials have been worth the money completely.
Yeah.
Like, I like those shows. I enjoy watching them. And, you know, it's one of those things where if they had a TV deal, and I guess I remember TNA on Pop TV, you know, Impact on Pop TV, Impact on Destination America.
Yeah.
I remember TNA on Spike. I remember all of these different TV deals, and as time went on, they actually progressively got worse, you know?
Big time.
And it progressively got worse. Now, granted, it was a different company, different management and everything, but it just goes to show you how mishandling your business can really impact you. Then you look at what Anthem did with Impact, and, you know, they've done some really good stuff, and it's just progress. We're constantly seeing progress with them. And it just kind of goes to show you that, like, we can talk about good wrestling matches all you freaking want, but it's all about the roster and it's all about the stories, because at the end of the day, we're in the TV rights business. That's what it is. TV rights. It's all about TV rights. It's all about getting the TV partner that will invest the money for you to produce your show and do big things. And, you know, WWE has two different TV deals, one with Fox, one with Comcast. They have deals with Hulu, and they have deals with, you know, all of these other companies around the world. AEW has a very, very massive deal with Warner Media Discovery, but also they have TSN in Canada, and we know ESPN in like New Zealand and Australia. So there's expansion. We know internationally they have DAZN as well. So there's a reason why. I mean, it's like MLW. We talk about MLW and look at their TV deal. Like every few weeks there's a new, hey, you could go here and watch MLW. It's like, it's almost kind of become a meme. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting that money for distributing your content as many places as possible. And that's the business that they're in. Yes, they want to sell tickets to their events. And yes, WWE and AEW does a good job with that. But ultimately, if you don't do house shows and you're doing weekly TV, you know, you're going to make money if it's good TV. I think the only reason why AEW is doing House Rules tour is because wrestlers just want to work more, because the one time a week isn't enough. And for some of them, it's one time a month or one time every few months. So, yeah, Impact is definitely the model that I think companies should kind of look at. You know, it's in terms of progressing your product. Don't, you know, things will get hard. You might fail. You might drop the ball. You might screw up. But with good management, you can earn people's trust back. And it's harder with the Impact brand, but they have gained a lot of people's trust back. And there's a lot of people who are skeptics, and we get comments, and I see comments on my channel. They're like, oh, how can you talk so highly about Impact, but you don't talk about Impact as the headliner of your video? And it's like, I'm transparent. Impact does not draw on YouTube like it did in 2016, 2015, 2014, you know? Yep. So I cover Impact stuff, but that's the reason. Like, that's a big reason. Okay, well, you know, I'm obviously, like, there was a time period where I wasn't even talking about WWE news on this channel because WWE was not a hot topic. WWE was not a hot product at all. So it like didn't matter. There was nothing good to talk about. So I didn't care to talk about it. Then you start to see throughout time, I was like, you know what? I'll still talk about Impact. I'll still talk about MLW. I'll still talk about these companies because it's good to talk about them. They're just not going to be the headliner. You know, wrestling will always, 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 always be dominated by one or two large companies, no matter what. But the cool thing about wrestling is that all of these small companies offer a ton of value, and when you watch them, you will enjoy them, and you will share it with your friends. And I've always been, and I don't endorse everything GCW does, and I sure as hell don't endorse everything that Impact does. I don't endorse everything that I don't endorse everything that AEW and WWE do. But more times often than not, they're all providing some sort of value to people. And if you're offering value to people, go enjoy it. Go watch what you watch. You know? I think Todd Crow just mentioned in the chat, Impact would improve their numbers with better presentation. No. I'm off of that. I don't think so. I've seen firsthand how they produce their shows and everything, and I just don't agree with that. I was watching Impact Plus on my phone, and I see the quality of Impact Plus on my phone, and it was very, 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 very high quality. Then I was watching it on my TV through like Roku or Google, whatever they call it, the Chromecast or Chrome TV or whatever, and the quality was like a little bit different. Like I can tell there's a difference in quality. And I was using that with like DirecTV Stream. And then I was watching it at my cousin's house on Access TV, but he has like Comcast, not streaming though. It's like the actual cable provider. He wasn't using Xfinity Stream, and his quality was just as good as like WWE or AEW. So there was something, maybe it's the connection, I don't know. But I think every time somebody says better production, presentation, or whatever, I don't know if I agree with that anymore. Because I used to say that, but it's not. They're using high quality cameras. The lighting is fine. I was in the arena. So I don't know what that is, but there is clearly some sort of disconnect, but maybe that's Access TV. I don't know. Maybe that's just the technology itself. I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact number, but I will tell you it was packed. Yeah.
Like, where can you see them, drawing attendance wise?
Say that one more time. Run it back. You were on mute for some reason.
Oh, can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Okay. So like attendance wise, where do you see Impact, having like a good audience, that attend shows? Like how big a venue can you see them realistically, drawing on a weekly basis?
What does ROH do? Like, I don't know how many tickets ROH sells. I don't want to say Supercard of Honor because that's not fair. They got Tanahashi, they got Speedball, they got that's
a stack card.
It's a stack card. Wait, am I ROH Supercard of Honor? I'm sorry. I'm fucking losing my mind right now. ROH Supercard of Honor has Commander,
Vikingo.
Yeah, obviously it's a stacked card with
the ladder match.
Yeah, there's a lot of things difference in terms of not skill, but names. Damn, I had a little bit of brain fart. I'm thinking of NJPW and Impact too. But I would say more than likely at that stage, I would say ROH Supercard of Honor is not fair. But wherever they did ROH Final Battle, let me see. ROH Final Battle 2022 attendance. All right, live gate. So ROH Final Battle with Samoa Joe, and obviously there were some big names there, right? They had the Briscoes, they had FTR, Chris Jericho against Claudio. That arena, that venue drew about 2,500 paid.
Okay.
College Park Center. Let me see what their actual seats available are. Let me see. Capacity 7,000. Okay. So College Park Center could do about 7,000. ROH sold 2,700. And they did very well with pay-per-view buys, by the way. So I would say, in my opinion, Impact could probably do the same thing.
Right.
I think they could do the same thing. However, look at Universal Studios with AEW Dark. Then go look at TNA Impact from Universal Studios and go look at the major difference there was. Impact TNA did smaller venues forever, but they always made it look way more packed than ever. So
Yes.
I think Impact could do 2,000 to 3,000 right now as it stands. With a better TV deal, more exposure, they could do 5,000.
Okay. Yeah. Because, I feel like, that's really for me the only thing that I would want to see, them being in a bigger venue, where they can have more fans, on the shows, that makes it feel more special when you're watching the product. And they're so good at having matches and storylines that, they can definitely benefit from having, a bigger crowd cheering them on all the time.
Yeah. If they have a bigger crowd, if Impact has a bigger crowd, I don't think it changes much for them, to be honest, because of how good the crowd was lately.
Yeah.
That can always change though too. I mean, I would never be opposed to them having a better crowd or a bigger crowd, but obviously, I think the way that they do it is more intimate. I think the reason why the crowd pops so well and everything is good is because of just the way it's set up. But now imagine, look at All In, for example. All those companies teaming up, they sold out over 10,000 tickets, they killed it, right?
Right.
Impact working with another company like New Japan, if they really wanted to, like this New Japan show that they're doing, Impact and New Japan, Multiverse, tomorrow night, for example, which by the way, it's at 11 p.m. Eastern. I want to go live after, but holy shit, that's going to be super late. I don't know how that's going to work.
I mean, I'll be watching it, so.
If you're staying up and watching it, dude, you should go live with me because it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'll be watching it, definitely.
But I look at that event and I think they could sell 10,000 tickets with that card. To be honest,
yeah.
Maybe they need some more names, bigger names, but you could bring in people, I feel like Impact could do a super show with another company and sell 10,000 tickets. I think they have a very good enough roster to do it. I think AEW and Impact can do a super show and it would be great. They don't have to do 10,000 seat arena though.
Do you think that MLW has a good enough roster to do a show with Impact?
I don't think people care about MLW, sadly.
I know, but I'm such a fan of Jacob Fatu, Hammerstone.
Of course. All guys, and it's so funny because Court Bauer will always be like, well, because on Twitter people will be like, oh, Hammerstone should go to AEW or Fatu should go to WWE or whatever. And Court Bauer's like, yeah, well, they're in MLW. They chose MLW. Right. And it's like, I get it. Yeah. Court Bauer is just promoting and he's doing his thing. But the thing about MLW, and I like MLW to a certain extent, but I think it's always going to be a very, 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 very small product, niche product. It's going to be one of those products where I think they'll always struggle. They do a lot of announcements and, oh, we got a new TV deal and new this and new that and whatever. But those are the type of things that, like, I think they don't really expand much more, like much more than they should. Like, I think like Impact at the very minimum. Okay, perfect example. Look at Impact back in the day as TNA, like when they were TNA and they were doing Universal Studios, right? Every single week they were at Universal Studios. There was a point in time where they were doing over 1 million viewers in ratings.
Yeah.
But look at the roster that they had to accomplish that. They still weren't in a bigger arena.
Right.
So I look at that as like an issue that MLW and Impact have right now. It's like, you're both in small arenas. You don't really command a really, 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 really big audience to come see both of your shows. You would need another powerhouse involved. But it's also not fair to AEW or New Japan either. For like a company like MLW. Like MLW has a cool roster, but if MLW and AEW did an event, it's really AEW doing the promotion, and AEW would be the one more responsible for.
Oh yeah, of course.
For the overall success of it. I think Impact would be different because Impact is more notable than MLW. I think more people care about Impact than MLW, and I think their roster is better than MLW. So I still think to a certain extent AEW would have a little bit more responsibility. They would be a little bit more responsible for the overall success, but at least Impact would be a good partner for AEW to do it. My point that I'm making is that I don't really want to see them go into a bigger arena. I just want them to do what they do, which is keep on putting good shows. They're traveling. They're going to Florida. They go to Vegas. They go to Canada. They're doing things. They have a great roster. They just got screwed with some two really big injuries, but that shit happens to Impact, dude, and they keep moving on and they keep getting better and they keep progressing regardless of what happens. You have Taya Valkyrie just walked out and went to AEW, and the thing is, if you really look at it from Impact, you get to go to Impact, bring your own character, get it over, and sign somewhere else, and you get paid pretty well.
Yeah.
So
it's a great landing spot for talent, honestly.
Look at Taya Valkyrie. She went to NXT. She left Impact, went to NXT, became Frankie Monet, got released, went back to Impact. Wow, they gave her a chance, right? And then, she went to AEW. So it's like Impact knows that's their role. It looks like they understand, what they're meant to do in this business. And the cool thing is, they put out a great product. So I think
that's the weird part. That they are the brand that puts on the more consistent product and brings the perfect balance of comedy, storylines, luchador style. They bring everything together perfectly. And it's insane because they are, the third best company, the third biggest company.
Yep.
So
and then just also to kind of give you like an idea, like with Impact and AEW and WWE, it goes back to what I was saying. It's like all about television rights, So what is really preventing Impact? And I don't know the answer to this. I don't honestly know. But what's like the one thing that's preventing Impact from getting a really, 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 really massive TV deal? Because if you think about it, they have good product, but they don't have the biggest names in wrestling. But guess what? I will say this. They get treated better on TV than most companies. We're sitting here arguing about Johnny Gargano and WWE, and we sit here and argue about AEW and how they use Miro and all these people. But guess what? I watch Impact, and we don't really question people's direction. We don't question people getting signed and not used. We don't question Brian Myers, and we don't question Bully Ray, and we don't question any of these people on the roster. They get booked just fine. But in WWE and AEW, we're constantly talking about people who are utilized or underutilized. So, to me, the only thing that Impact is really missing is that one really, really big name. It's that one really, really big name that just takes them to new heights. CM Punk. What?
Right, yeah, right?
Like, imagine
at
that,
least
though.
you didn't go with Oldberg, so that's good. What?
Huh?
What?
Yeah, see, the thing is, you got a whole bunch of random people on Twitter will tell you that's stupid, but is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Oh, no, of course, yeah.
If you were AEW and you're renegotiating your TV rights deal and you're like, hey, we're going to bring Goldberg back to TBS and TNT, you think that like that would be beneficial for AEW. If Impact did, it would be beneficial for Impact if they were trying to get a new TV deal. And that's if they're trying to get a new TV deal. I can't even say that they are, but I'm just saying in general, if they wanted a new TV deal. And I can only go off of what Earl Hebner said that one time on that podcast. It's hard to say for sure if that's the plan, but my point that I'm making is like, all it takes is a couple big names and everything can change. But I can tell you right now, if people are leaving Impact, when do you hear of scandals? When do you hear of backstage issues with Impact? When's the last time I heard of a backstage issue with Impact? Lady Frost?
Right. Yeah.
I talked about that on my channel. Lady Frost, she wanted out.
Yep.
And now she's doing what? She's not really doing anything on ROH with any significance. But
no.
My point that I'm making is that she's not really doing anything she's not really doing anything now after Impact. And the whole point to that I'm saying is you don't hear a lot of drama about Impact.
Right, exactly.
You don't hear that much drama from Impact. Before that, the last thing I could think of, I swear, maybe it was the Tessa Blanchard thing, but that wasn't Impact's fault. And then before Tessa,
right. For me, it goes farther back to, to like the stories of, bouncing checks and talent not being paid. And that was like deep in Dixie,
Yeah, that's a whole different company at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like since Anthem took over, I've never personally heard anything bad from Talon about being there.
The only story that I heard was the Lady Frost. That was the one that was
Right.
It was kind of well documented through the dirt sheets and stuff, but even that, it wasn't really that crazy of a story. It wasn't like the Austin Aries like walking out, you know, in Austin. I can't remember.
Right.
Was that Billy Corgan's era or Dixie Carter's era? I can't remember. But when Austin Aries walked out on Impact, you know, during his World Championship match or whatever, that was a whole ordeal, and that became a big topic. But
yeah. And I think that was early Billy Corgan. But yeah, you know, the point is that, yeah, it's been a long time since Impact had those, you know, dark days, you know, which is great for the company, obviously.
it just goes to show you different company, different management, and that it's, I mean, it's a good thing, right? Like, I'm glad to see it's not the same company because, I mean, imagine, dude, this company's been around forever. And like me and my cousin were talking about it, right? It's like in 2004 or 2008, we didn't really know how good Impact really was. We always knew it was good, but we didn't realize like those were some really great years for Impact. But then you see what happens with that company throughout time, and in real time, you're like, wow, this is bad, right? Alberto Del Rio, GFW, Global Force Wrestling. Like that was a mess, dude.
Yes.
How does a company survive that garbage, right? But they did, right? This is a company who has literally survived the worst of the worst. And I guess my point that I'm trying to... Yeah, dude, but now I guess...
You know, I feel like...
But they came back from that, right? And
Yeah,
and they
of course,
managed to
yeah.
survive. And it just goes to show you how strong Impact's management is now. Actually, I'll tell you right now. I think if Anthem said, hey, we're changing the name of Impact, the company Impact is no longer a thing, I think they would be completely fine. Because people will automatically assume Impact is garbage because Dixie Carter, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I look at that as like a real show of strength from Anthem and how they conduct business there. And yet, for some reason, we talk about AEW and we're talking about, we talk about all of these dramas that are being talked about and whatever's fed to the dirt sheets and whatever's being talked about. You got people leaking stories and you don't know if it's a work, if it's a shoot. You got all this drama. We should be talking about how good the fucking product is, but instead we're sitting here talking about a guy possibly getting bit by a dog, possibly getting bit by another human, people kicking down doors. You got people talking about their champions and roster members in a whole negative light. Every week it's something else, and the hardcore fans pop for backstage news like that, but I personally hate it. I hate talking about the negative stuff because I hate he say, she say. This is why most of my videos when I talk about AEW typically are about new signings or people leaving the company, or I talk about storylines or injuries, things like that. I don't want to be talking about people fighting backstage and having issues. And guess what, bro? I'm sure it happens everywhere. I'm sure it happens in every company. I'm sure people aren't going to like their coworkers if you work at Walmart or Subway or McDonald's or Chrysler or Ford or any of these companies. You're not always going to like your coworkers, but for some reason in AEW, that's the thing that people talk most about. And I think, you know, at times people were talking more about the negative stories backstage than what was happening on TV. So I think when you go fast forward 10 years from now, there could have been really, really good stuff in 2022 or 2021, but our version might be distorted because we're talking about the drama and everything instead, because that's all a distraction from what's happening on TV. So it goes back to what I was saying about the Impact stuff. 2004, 2008, in real time, you didn't know how great it was. You knew it was good stuff, but you really learned to appreciate it after you saw so much of the bad years later. And that's how I think I knew Impact was on fire. 2018, 2019, it comes around, and you see Impact is making changes, and the stories are getting better, and it's just a whole different vibe with Anthem. You know?
Yeah, yeah. And because it's slowly been happening for like the last, I'd say like 3-4 years, where it's been consistently getting better and never taking any steps back. You know, always improving every division, you know, the talent, the storylines, and, you know, it's been consistently, you know, must-see wrestling. You know, they always give you a little bit of everything, you know, and, you know, leave you wanting more. and it's been like that for a while. And, I have to say, Scott D'Amore getting promoted, I think that's awesome, what they did. Like, he's really, him and Gail Kim have been carrying that company behind the scenes, and she really has been great in, helping make that women's division be one of the best out there. It may not have a Charlotte Flair and Britt Baker, but talent-wise, it will compete with any division. And storyline-wise, it will compete with any company, period. And Gail Kim, is, responsible for a lot of that.
I mean, I've said it a million times, but Impact has the best women's division because they're not sitting here trying to tell you there's a women's evolution happening. They're not sitting here bragging about, oh, we put women in the main event, or, they're doing this and that. Nope. That's what WWE does. That's PR. That's, them trying to do whatever the hell they got to do as a $1 billion business. But Impact for years, and it's not just now, but 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the women always shined on Impact. They didn't have to tell you they were going to do it. They didn't have to tell you we're doing a women's evolution. Like, they just simply put out good content. They didn't have to sit here and try to lie to you. And I don't know. I guess I'll just always appreciate the fact that AEW and WWE have, they have good programs and they got good money and they got good budgets, but everything for them, in a way, it's like a machine. They have to broadcast everything that they're doing that's good, and I look at Impact as the blueprint when it comes to women's wrestling. I really do. And I think, it will always go back to the fact that for so many years, they never had to sit there and brag and say, oh, look at us, we're doing a women's evolution. They just simply treated the women well. And the women have always been put in good storylines, and the women have always been a focal point. And it was always pushed without them having to sit there and try to get you to believe in them. They just showed you why the women were good. They didn't sit there and try to convince you. They just did it. And that's different from WWE. WWE was sitting there trying to show you, oh, women's evolution, and, all of this different stuff. Impact never did that. And I think for a very, very long time, people won't understand the, no pun intended, but the impact that they made by highlighting their women and giving them that platform to do great things. That for sure will go down in history as one of the best moves that company has ever made, because look at their Impact Knockout Tag Team Champions. Look at the women who go in there competing for the Knockouts Championship. And you mentioned Gail Kim, but look at Mickie James and look at all of these people. Mickie James is a former WWE superstar with a name. If she wants, she could probably get into AEW.
Yeah.
But no, she's working in Impact. I think that's the one thing I will say. I'll say this. If there's one thing that I like really much, like so much about Impact, I feel like from my own experience, what I saw, and kind of my overall impression of them for a long time, the reason why you don't hear about too many issues from Impact backstage compared to AEW is because I think you have people that are there. They understand exactly why they're there. They understand exactly their role, and they all have a common goal of making Impact the best television product possible, giving fans what they're looking for. I'm telling you, I think there is less egos involved with Impact than there is with WWE and AEW. For sure.
Yeah, and I can see that definitely, because there's never anything said about them, in any kind of bad light at all.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think that's actually a good time for us to stop too, because we started talking about Impact. AEW obviously had a good episode. Tomorrow we have New Japan and Impact Wrestling doing a collaboration show. So before y'all get excited about Forbidden Door, I truly advise you guys to check it out. I've already purchased it. It's a really, really good, valuable card. We got Speedball Mike Bailey versus Tanahashi. We got Kenta versus Kenta versus Minoru Suzuki. We got some really big names on this card. Josh Alexander, unfortunately, is injured, but Impact really coming through with a strong card with New Japan tomorrow. It's WrestleMania week. It starts at 11 p.m. Eastern. I want to do a live stream. I do want to review it. I'm excited about the show. I don't know if people will come through, but guys, if you decide to come through after the show, I would love that. My guess is that it's going to be 2 to 3 hours long. I've never done a live stream at 3 in the morning, so that's going to be really crazy. But if you guys come through, that'd be great. It's going to be a massive event. I'm so happy that they're doing this. Impact taking advantage of WrestleMania weekend is just a cool thing. And from what it sounds like they sold a lot of tickets to the event. So this is one that is expected to be really special. So yeah, I'll be live tomorrow. Albert Ponce. What was that? You cut off.
Oh no, I said yeah. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be awesome every match.
Yeah. And no, honestly, it is. It's going to be really cool. So we'll be live. We'll talk about it again. Ango Mania. We keep continuing the coverage. We keep talking. I love this. This is so fun. I'm really enjoying it. And you know what, guys? I thank you all for spending your time with me. Maybe you missed AEW All Access because you were watching this show. So I thank you for giving me your time. I want everybody to have a good night or good morning, depending on your time zone. But with that being said, thank you all for stopping by. And Albert, thank you so much for joining me.